Okay, we're ready to go. Okay, Leah and I took off for New York City. We headed for Iowa.
For the second half of our Lincoln.
Yeah, so if you were here last year, we talked about going west out to San Francisco. So this is a banner that it was somewhere in Ohio, but I took a picture of it and I thought this was a way to start out this series. You want the next slide?
Give me a second here. I'm trying to get you in the camera. There we go. And I will do the next slide right now.
Okay, on our way south, we went through Northfield, and guess what we came across? Appropriate, we were on the Lincoln Highway before we were on the Lincoln Highway. We find Lincoln Lane and Lincoln Street in Northfield. So I thought that was a good sign for us as we got it south. Next slide. And this is old gas station we found in Northfield also. I took this picture because of the flags, the contest we had last year, and I submitted this as one of my slides. Good. And so our first stop on Lincoln Highway was the Lincoln Hotel in Loudon, Iowa. And it was a 6-bedroom town, B&B, and we were the only ones there. So next slide.
And it was very quaint and it was very comfortable.
This was inside on the handrail going upstairs. Next slide. And as we're going toward Morrison, Illinois, saw a sign for covered bridge. It was a couple miles off our route, but we thought we'd take a run up over there, and it was a very, very nice picture. Very
picturesque.
Next slide. And then as we got to Clinton, Illinois, this was the highway sign as we came into town.
People are really proud to be on the Lincoln Highway. I mean, every town that we went through, they had either a sign or a post like that. And then in this town in Franklin Grove, it's the headquarters of the Lincoln Highway. And so we had to stop, of course. And that building, the person that we met inside who was kind of running it, he said that one of Abraham Lincoln's relatives actually used that building, and I believe he was also a lawyer, but I forgot what his name was. But anyway, so Lincoln. That was his last name. But anyway, it was an interesting stop.
Next slide. This is a certificate that was signed back in February of 1914. It was inside. There was a whole bunch of memorabilia inside the museum. It wasn't really much there. The guy that was running it was interesting. What was his name?
He changed it to Rosie, but he didn't look like a Rosie.
He was an interesting gentleman, that's all. Next slide. And then as we were heading east, we went to Van Wert, Ohio, and this was a gas station with an old pump that we've got a picture. Some people took the camera and took our picture, and we visited with them for a while, so that was fun.
On the back roads, we find a lot of old gas stations, and it's kind of cool.
And this was the first paved mile on the Lincoln Highway.
In Malta, Illinois.
Yeah.
Is that the road that you're on? Or is that just in front of the building?
No, that was in front of the building. I just snuck off the road and pulled in there. So nobody's looking. Nobody's looking. Were they gonna shoo me away? Next slide. And then as we're traveling along, I passed this old truck, and my little cow was watching and afraid he's gonna go with him. But we found out later, and when we stopped for gas, there was a big car show going on, and that's what this guy was going, because they were asking us if we were going to go to the car show, but we didn't. So anyway, next slide. And then Upper City, Ohio. Sandusky. Okay.
We came across an Amish community. They were that's where they lived. And anyway, we came across this road, and these 4 little girls were in this cart and pony, and they were so cute. And then they saw us as they turned into their driveway. So we tried to get a picture of them, and we went a little farther. We don't have a picture of this, but we had some boys, Amish boys on bicycles, and it was just kind of fun to be going in that area.
Next slide. And then this is also in the same town. We saw the same Amish guy with a trailer with the two big horses going through town. Next slide. And as we were driving along, I heard a sound I didn't like coming from my alternator. It sounded like a dry bearing. So I did a running board repair job. I tore it apart. Next slide. And that's inside of an alternator. So if you can see at the bottom of the bearing there, I put a little grease in there to see if that would quiet it down. So next slide. Got it back together, and I assembled on the car, and it took care of my little squeal. So we're good to go. Next slide. And this is in East Liverpool, Ohio. This is the Sturgis house. This was originally private residency. Next slide.
And why we stopped there was because, as the sign says, that it was famous for having displayed the body of Pretty Boy Floyd in October of 1934. And they had a death mask, which I wanted to see. And
Of course, it was closed.
It was closed, so we didn't get to see it, but anyway, we stopped and took this picture instead.
Next.
And it was kind of funny. I just want to say, one of the funny things of that town was we got lost. Our GPS broke, and that's what we depend upon. So Steve had his phone out, and it's not as good as far as
We kept going around in circles.
and one of the funny things, it was a small town, and we went down a one-way the wrong way, and a cop was right just over the next street, and he just watched us as we were trying to figure out where the heck we were.
And then right across the river we were in West Virginia. This is Chester, West Virginia, and this is the largest teapot. Now it was really bad area. There wasn't really a place to pull over and take a picture. So I did the best I could here. There was no parking lot or anything. There was a lot of traffic here. So we did get this picture here.
That road curved around and got onto a freeway, and that was why it was so hard.
Next slide. And while I was investigating putting this tour or this trip together, I'm a member of the Lincoln Highway Association, and I happened to be looking through the membership roster, and I found a lady in there, Mary Ann, who was a member of the Lincoln Highway, and she lived in
Beaver Falls,
Pennsylvania, and we were heading for Beaver Falls. So I got a hold of her, and so we made arrangements to see. She's the lady that's in the middle, and that's her sister and brother-in-law.
No, that's her brother and sister-in-law.
Okay.
And the reason I remember their name is because together it's Mary and Joseph, like the Holy Family. And so I've forgotten the sister-in-law's name, but those two I remember.
So we met with them and had an ice cream cone and visited for a couple hours. Then next slide. And then we met our new members in Beaver Falls, Kevin and Karen Fueling. Remember that? They got a hold of you, wanted a manual. And so I delivered a original manual to them from my supply. And so we spent the day with them, and
in the evening.
In the evening, we had dinner with them, and then we spent the night at their house. So it was really nice.
He just wishes he lived closer because he would be active in this.
Yes, he would be. Very, very interesting gentleman.
Yeah.
He worked for GM. He spent a lot of time in Iraq and with supplying them with vehicles and stuff. So he's very, very fun guy.
He works for GM, but he owns a Ford.
Yeah. Yeah. Next slide. And this is the roads that were around Beaver Falls. It's just a wonderful place to drive a Model A. As we're heading east. Then we get to the Allegheny Mountains, and this is a mural on a barn that we took a picture of. And then we got to the Allegheny Mountains, and a lot of it was 8 to 10% grade. And we saw a lot of these signs. And when they said 5 miles of steep grades, they meant 5 miles of steep grades. It was challenging with the Model A. And you can see there's pull-off spots that they have designated for trucks there. So it was, and they were only 20 miles an hour. So I was in 20 miles an hour, was good for me. So,
But it was scary going down. And if you go to the next slide, you can see what the roads were.
so this is what we were looking at as we were driving along.
And going up, as he said, is like 20 miles an hour, but going down in a Model A, we're only doing about 46, but it feels like you're on a skateboard or a bicycle. Shaky. That's all you don't feel very safe.
Next slide. It's another road. Next slide. Then we got to the Flight 93 National Memorial. That's right on the Lincoln Highway in Pennsylvania there. So next slide. And we're up at the museum right now, at the memorial, and then down at that building that way down at the upper left-hand corner there, that was where the plane ended up. Oh, I'm sorry, that's where the plane ended up down there. It slid all the way down that hill. It was 90-some degrees, so we could have walked down there, but we didn't feel like it.
I got a quick question for you. When you're on those downgrades, you drop in a second gear or you leave it?
No. I speed up. Okay.
And it was interesting too, because the museum itself, we spent a lot of time in there and it was very moving. And I got a book, and the book told about the people who actually lived there when that happened. And the ones who saw it, the plane actually was upside down as it was crashing. And they could hear who are the guys who listen? Anyway, they not the people on the ground, but the air traffic controllers. They could hear people. It sounded like they were on a roller coaster because the plane was so out of control. So it was very moving.
Yeah, they had recordings of people that were there on the plane talking to their families as they were going down. So it was moving, very moving. And this is a 93-foot tower, music instrument they built. It's 40 chimes. It represents the 40 people that died, that were killed that day. And when the wind blows, it plays some music. Well, that day it wasn't windy, so we didn't hear the chimes.
I don't think it actually plays a song. I think it's just chimes.
Just chimes, yeah. Next slide. And then I found this on the internet, this motor court. I really wanted to stay there, but it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I didn't feel like stopping for the day. So we just stuck around and took some pictures. Next slide. But this would have been really neat to stay at. Next slide. And then I got a picture of me and my wife.
Yeah.
Her hand.
There was nobody around.
Nobody around to take our pictures, so that's what we did. Next slide. And then with the heat, this is the first time I've ever had to do this, but I had real problems with vapor lock. When you ask for non-oxygenated gas out east, they kind of look at you, what? And I said, gasoline without alcohol in it. Nope. So we couldn't find any. So I put some rags on it, water on it, and that took care of my problem. Wasn't probably the safest thing to do, but it got us through.
We were down for about 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour.
Next slide.
Luckily, we were by a parking lot, so we moved into a parking lot, so we were safe.
Then we got to Gettysburg. In the next slide, went to the museum there and visitor center. We spent a couple hours there going through that. That had changed a lot. We were there, about 80?
About 40 years
yeah,
ago.
In the 80s when my kids were little. So it had changed a lot. It was a really nice museum. Next slide. And then we ran into Lincoln, and he didn't have much to say that day. So next slide. And we went out through the Gettysburg, the battlefield there, and we found the Minnesota Memorial there, monument. And then when we were leaving Gettysburg the next morning, it rained all night, and this is where I had car trouble. And
it was heavy rain. really, really
And I-
torrential.
And I had no spark at the spark plugs or at the coil. I actually took the distributor out and the coil wire and brought it into the motel room and tried to dry it out with the hair dryer. And it was raining this whole time I'm doing this. I put it back in. I finally got some spark at the coil wire, but I couldn't get any spark to go through the distributor. And so I ended up fooling around with that enough, and I finally pulled out my other distributor, threw it in, and it fired up. So then we were down the road. But we lost about an hour and a half of fooling around with that. And our goal that day was to get to New Jersey on the west side of the Lincoln Tunnel. And we got into real heavy traffic in New Jersey. Like Leah said, our Garmin had quit, and I was using the phone, and it took us through some heavy truck traffic. We were going through some warehouses and train tracks, and some of the potholes were bigger than my car, and you couldn't see anything because all these trucks.
And Steve kept making wrong turns without the GPS. So we turned into wherever semi trucks go, and we were surrounded with semi trucks. And so we're this big, and the trucks are this big. So all we could do is look up, and we were trying to get out of this area, and we saw a ramp that went up and above railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And so Steve thought he had enough room, so he goes up the ramp and scoots in front of this one truck. He was not happy. He must have blasted his horn about 5 minutes, and he just kept blasting it. And then they got next to us, and we're down here, and so, but all we could see is an arm shaking like that, and you could tell he was probably swearing, but we couldn't hear him, so.
But he was not a happy camper.
No, so we got out of there as soon as we could.
So then we got in a hotel. This is just on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. Lincoln Highway is behind us, and New York is behind us. If you'd taken that road right to the right there, that would take you right to the Lincoln Highway, or Lincoln Tunnel, I'm sorry, Lincoln Tunnel. And
it was rainy and it was very, very foggy.
Yeah.
So we got bad weather.
Yeah, so this is traffic, this is light traffic that was down there. I wish I would have got some pictures of some heavy traffic. Once we got to the hotel, other than going to the start of the Lincoln Highway in New York, we didn't move with the car. So we took an Uber, next slide.
And the weather turned nice.
Yeah. And the next day we're downtown, and this is the memorial pools. Got some pictures there, and this is the Oculus, the #1 World Trade Center. Behind there, this is that Oculus is actually a transportation deal. You get subways and stuff from there.
And they have restaurants and shops in there.
So next slide, we went on some tours here. And we went through the museum, and that flag on the left there, that was that one that was on that pole. And they had signs all over there, don't take a picture. I took a picture. That was also, I submitted that for the contest too.
So you pissed off a trucker and you took an illegal picture.
Yeah. And then I made a mistake of bringing my happy tool with me. They don't like that. So I had to leave it with security, so next slide.
The 9/11 museum, though, is also very moving. It took about 3 hours and a half to get through it.
We could have spent more time there. If you're gonna go, you have to buy your tickets ahead of time, or you'll be waiting in a line for a long time.
Tell them what it is.
That motor on the right, that's for an elevator, and then the pictures on the left, that's the footings, one of the towers. Next slide. And this is the Oculus from the up of the Trade Center. And then the Statue of Liberty on the left and Ellis Island on the right. That's from up there too. Beautiful. We had a nice clear day. It was nice. Next slide. So Sunday morning we got up at 5:30. We got on the road by 6. It took us about 15 minutes to get downtown, and there was 6:30 in the morning, so it was hardly any traffic. There was some people on foot there, but I was really nervous.
And there was traffic.
Not
It just wasn't.
Not a lot, but I wanted to get sent Leah out on the streets to take the picture.
That's why I knew there was traffic. I was watching the lights.
I saw Leah had 11 seconds to get the picture done before the traffic was gonna change.
That's right.
That's right. So we made it. So now we did our goal. We're East Coast to West Coast and on Lincoln Highway. Now,
Next slide.
next slide, it's on our way home. This is the, what's the name of this town again?
I can't
This is
think of
actually
it.
on Lincoln Highway. This is some stuff we missed on our way out, so we caught it on the way back. And of course, this carousel was closed. We had a lot of luck.
Mansfield.
Mansfield, yeah.
And I'll go to the next slide.
Next slide.
What's here that is so interesting is,
Well, this is a Coney Island diner that we wanted to eat at. Of course, they were closed.
it was closed.
We had a lot of luck with closed stuff. And right across the street, there was a pizza parlor, so we went and had pizza. But that was kind of good because we talked to the lady there, and she told us, next slide.
No, I was gonna ask, did they know you were coming and that's why they closed?
That could have been.
I think so.
The trucker told them it was coming.
And so they sent me back to the state reformatory there in Mansfield, Ohio. This doesn't look like a reformatory, but that's what this is.
Actually, this was really neat. When we went to that pizza parlor, we had seen signs to go to this, but we didn't know what it was. Well, if you remember about probably 30 years ago, the Shawshank Redemption film, this is where it was filmed. And it is, and so we took a tour and you could take
Self-guided.
a self-guided one. So you can go to the next slide.
Next
I just noticed that Steve's not in the picture. Did they try holding him?
Yeah.
She was picking me up. And they're trying to renovate the building. It's disrepair. This was the chapel in there. Next slide. And this is some of the cells from the cell block.
They were four floors high.
Yeah. And this is from the movie, picture from the movie one that was inside there. Next slide. And there's my good friend Morgan Freeman.
And he's behind bars there.
There, yeah, Leah picked me up behind bars. Next slide. And then so I am there. She picked me up, see? As we're leaving, we got some more. Somebody took our picture. Next slide. And then as we're heading home, we've got to Rome, Indiana, and we saw this sign for this covered bridge. Oh, another covered bridge. Great. So we pulled in there. Next slide. And there's the covered bridge.
But they were working on it, so we couldn't go through it. So then there was a sign that said to the town. They had antique stores and little cafes, so we went to the town. I don't know, next slide. Oh. Well, we got there and the town was closed, the whole town, nothing was open. So as we're driving out, we see this and we thought, oh, cool, it's a little mill and all this stuff. There was a chain of over the road and it said closed for the season. And it's like, isn't the season summer? But so it's the town that was closed.
Yeah, so next slide. Then we came to Streeter, Illinois, and I'd like to take this picture and the next picture. Now this is really neat. This is on the side of a building. You see what's in the background. Our car fit right into that. So I was able to get that's as close as I could get to that side of that building, but take the next slide.
I'm surprised, because you drive anywhere you want.
Yeah. Next slide. And this is the building. Isn't that neat? That was just, it looks like the building has been painted. It was just a neat surprise.
And it's a little park, in front of it where you could sit and have.
Yeah, that's as close as I would have liked to get on the other side of the park, but that was not available. I almost tried. And then we kept going west. Now this is not on the Lincoln Highway. This is Galena, Illinois. We stopped there and Leah Galena's kind of like Stillwater, but about 10 more blocks.
Shopping mecca, and I love it. So,
So she was shopping and I was just wandering around the town and I just took these pictures of these stairs. They go up forever. I just can't imagine having to trek up all these stairs.
Next slide.
And of course, can't have a tour lately without a flat tire. We got Dickeyville and yeah, got a flat tire. So next slide. Change the tire. Next slide. And we got home. So we made it home, 17 days, drove 3,215 miles, had one flat tire, vapor lock, and a wet distributor. So we did it. So.
I got a
you
question.
have a
Yeah.
question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you took pictures inside the reformatory, did you use a cell phone?
Oh.
That's the only kind they allowed us to use.
Get at the cell.
Oh.
You're gonna split it
Yeah,
right
no,
home.
no, I got it, it's the only kind we can use. It's a
I do have
cell
something
phone.
serious to say though. When I read the magazine with your story of, yeah. West, everybody I've talked to that's read that article, wish it would have been 2 pages longer and with more detail. They loved the article. Great job on it.
Wait till the next issue is gonna have the eastern half, gonna have this half on.
That's great.
Oh, really?
That's
And-
great.
and
Congratulations.
And I should say, if anybody really wants to have the daily blog, just give us your email and we'll just add you to the list, because every night I write what we've done for the day. And so usually people get it the next morning. But if you're interested, just give it to Steve.
Wait, I have a question.
When you were going through, western Pennsylvania, did you notice a town called
Turnbull?
Turnbull?
No.
Doesn't ring a bell.
We've been through there,
All right.
nothing much there, but it's unusual name,
Yeah.
right close to Turkey Center.
You know, we hardly were in West Virginia. It was just kind of,
No, Pennsylvania.
oh, Pennsylvania, I'm sorry.
Western Pennsylvania.
Oh, no.
Mark Leader, where's the next trip?
Well, in May 30th or 30th, we're heading south. Our church senior group is going to Eureka Springs and Branson, and I'm driving the Model A down there, and we're gonna meet up with them. And then they're gonna, when they go home, I'm gonna head south. I'm gonna go through Oklahoma and Texas and Alabama and Louisiana. We're gonna hit the 9 states that's down in southeastern United States.
South Carolina's the last state, and then we're gonna get back.
So then I'll have 42 states under my goal is to get all 48 states. So
Ron,
Did you enjoy the east or the west more?
Yeah.
The West,
I like the West better because of the traffic.
yeah.
The traffic was, I stayed away from Pittsburgh just for the traffic. We were south of Chicago as we went on the Lincoln Highway. Traffic was just terrible. It was just, it's just nerve, I don't know. You're tired from driving in that traffic, especially, you can't keep up with traffic half the time. And they're just, the car did stall on me once. I didn't put it in there, but we were just south of Chicago and the car stalled on me. I hate to say it's luck, but I think it's a God thing. We were able to coast into a parking lot and get off the highway, because if that car would have broke down on the highway, and it was vapor lock again is what it was. So I just had to cool down and get going again.
What time of the year did you go?
It was August last year, so it was hot. And the first part of the trip was really, really hot. And then we had that few days of rain, cooled off, and then got hot.
It wasn't as hot when we were out west. We were at the Shin's house. It was 113 degrees.
That was really
That
hot.
was really hot. Yeah. So,
thank you, Steve and Leah.
yeah.